4% ABV, 100% Orangutan. By Nicholas Leonard. I remember that day in Orlando Health Horizon West Hospital so vividly. Though I had been accustomed to Megan and Mom's rosemary shampoo since childhood, for some reason that smell sticks out in my memory. We stood so close in the hallway while waiting to be let into the room. Mom was dabbing her eyes with the tissue, her orange hair curled and smelling of the rosemary shampoo. Megan had it on her too. It was the only familiar smell in that place. Everything else smelled so sanitized. Anxiety and patience mixed while we waited. But we always have been a cool-headed family, so we kept our little weeps among the three of us. After all, we hadn't been let into the room yet. That was probably when and where all the hysteria was meant to happen. And who would have a front row seat to Brendan, Megan, and Susan Sapien's hysteria? Roderick Sapien, my dad, propped up in a hospital bed on a sunny Florida day. It was almost impressive how diligently the doctor kept us from being able to peek inside the room while he exited, closing the door behind him. He was tall, with the bravado of an airplane pilot. "Hello, family," he said in a hushed voice, consulting his clipboard. "What's the problem, Doc? What can we do?" Mom asked with a sudden spurt of bravery, but I watched it recede back into desperation when she read the doctor's face. He answered, "I'm very sorry to say, but it seems his cognitive function has been significantly impaired. You can pursue special classes for people that have experienced life-altering medical crises, but that will only help so much. He is aware, but I'm afraid he's lost the ability to speak. His emotional IQ may have suffered greatly from this, but there's really no telling of that yet." "Will he still love us?" Megan said, turning away from the doctor and asking her mom. "Will Daddy still love us?" But Mom was focused on the doctor, and he was compact in his lack of emotion. Sympathy. Stone-cold sympathy. "He's probably not going to be able to continue his regular job," he explained. "Well, what can he do?" Mom asked, to which he answered, "If things go well, then he could possibly have the wherewithal to become employed in grocery stores, as long as the employer is understanding and sympathetic. He doesn't have to work. We'll take care of him," I said to Mom. But still, she was intent on the doctor. She was 3 years older than I was. Hell, we were 19 and 22. But that was our dad in there. She squeezed it, and I took a deep breath. The doctor continued. "You three have to brace yourselves. There are programs and homes." "I'm not putting him in a home," Mom snapped. The doctor composed himself, polishing his stone-cold sympathy. "Before we go in there, I'd like to ask the three of you some questions." Megan and I looked at each other as if surprised to be included. Sometimes patients aren't so forthcoming about this, so how much would Roderick drink on a regular basis? He asked us. We paused. I'm not certain," Mom said. It was me who answered. "I think between 8 and 12 beers. "A week?" the doctor asked, to which I shook my head. "A day?" he asked. I consulted Mom and Megan, and then we looked back at him and nodded. "And how long has this been a habit of his?" he asked. "Years," Mom said. "He just handled himself. He was never mean or angry drunk. If my husband wanted to have a couple beers after work, then I wasn't going to stop him." "He was a very jolly drunk," Megan agreed, as if that would somehow save our dad. "Did he consume the same amount on the weekends?" he asked, to which Mom hushed more. I don't know why, but the memory of Dad cracking open a Bud Light at 11 in the morning made me seek solace in the ceiling. I had to swallow the urge to break out in tears. I had to be strong for Megan, who already had trails down her cheek. "Well, I think it's all right if we go in now, but you should be prepared for a shock," he said. "Would you like a moment?" We all looked at each other. Mom took both our hands the way she might have when taking us into the store when we were younger. On behalf of the both of us, she nodded. And it seemed as though we were about to walk off a ledge instead of into a hospital room. His stone-cold sympathy shattered into something solemn when he reached behind and started opening the door. He let us go in first. There was substantial light inside from the window, which looked out on some marshland, the kind herons fly over. Everything was a dull turquoise and sterile white. It all smelled so sterile, too. Megan let go of my hand to put her hand to her mouth. Mom gasped his name in wet disappointment. "Roderick." And I just stood there baffled. I don't know why we were so surprised. We all had seen what happened to him when the ambulance came. I was the one who found him, in his recliner, in front of the TV with a Bud Light can on the coffee table. He was still watching the news as if nothing ever even happened. In the hospital bed, there lay an orangutan, with turquoise sheets pulled up to its beer belly. It had gray skin that almost seemed purple, and strawy orange hair. What once was a 6'1" man was now reduced to something 4 feet. His arms had elongated, his face flattened out into a bowl. You know the face. Orangutan. That face which is entranced in eternal laziness. The kind when you go to the zoo and look at monkeys and see that they have nothing to do but sit behind the glass. "Daddy!" Megan whined, rushing to his bedside, but of course he was not so reactive. Did he recognize her? I think he did, but he wasn't showing much capability of sympathy. Mom started crying. Dad just looked at Megan. "That's still him, right?" I asked the doctor. Yes. With its frequency and volume of alcohol consumption, I'm not surprised that the transition was as rapid as it was, the doctor said to me while Megan and Mom wept over Dad. I stuttered. Can anything be done? Like, is there some kind of therapy, medication, or surgery? I'm afraid not. There is no coming back from this, the doctor said. I did not want to cry over him. Mom and Megan did not deserve this. I watched Dad turn his orangutan head between the two of them, too bothered to even be perplexed by their tears. What could be used to describe Dad's new default emotion was indifference. I looked at him, a big but stout and dumb animal in a hospital bed. He pointed at me. Mom stepped back and gasped with so much sharp hope. He wiggled his finger at me and cupped his hands in the air. His fingers were so long. And he motioned an invisible beer can, tipping it into his mouth. I took a deep breath. "No, Dad," I said. "You can't have any more." "That's right," the doctor said. "He needs to be kept away from alcohol for the rest of his life." Mom sat on the side of the bed, taking one of his purple hands in both of her hands. "Honey, oh honey, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." Still, he was indifferent. I was the one who drove home that day because Mom and Megan were too distraught. Dad had always taught me to be like a big brother to Megan, even though she was older. So I channeled that part of me, that lesson he instilled in me. He was a good father, a good man. He always helped people. He bought a candy bar for an employee with Down syndrome at the CVS just a month before he became an orangutan. There was once a little girl crying, lost in her neighborhood, and he helped her find her way back home. It was because of him that I decided to sit with a kid nobody was sitting with in 3rd grade, and that's how I met my best friend Caleb. He cried with pride and love when Megan came out as lesbian. He would leave little love notes for Mom, hiding them in cabinets. One even caught fire in the oven when she didn't happen to see it when sliding a pan of cake batter into the oven. That certainly was a memorable visit from the fireman. He brought me with him to install our neighbor Miss Jaden's dishwasher. While driving home from Orlando Health, I thought about mine and Megan's earliest summer memories. Those days were full of fruit salad, Disney movies on VHS, and Play-Doh. And how great that would be when Dad got home. He'd chase us out back before even undoing his tie. He'd catch us, of course, and throw us into the pool, letting out some growl of Papa Bear satisfaction when we bubbled back up, screaming and laughing, "Daddy!" I wonder if parents still throw their kids like that anymore. It was always a gentle toss, of course, but when you're 4 and 7, it feels like you're being launched. In those days, beer was a comical thing. I remember I always found it interesting how a drink could have a cloud floating on top of it. Now, that part was enticing, but the way Dad's breath smelled like cold pee and pickle juice was not. It was just another dad smell. It was something which family friends teased him about, like the Bud Light can in his hand while he's at the grill was part of a mascot costume. He was responsible, too. He didn't encourage it or romanticize it at all. It was just his favorite drink. But apparently you're not supposed to have beer every single day. Dad did. He developed a beer belly, a whole hot air balloon beneath his shirt. It seemed as though he was getting ready to float away, but this seemed to be no point of concern for him. He had this evening ritual to sit in his recliner and watch the news while drinking beer. "Let me see if the world needs me," he used to joke when turning on the TV. It was just his way of decompressing after work. And he kept his traditional ritual alive for all of mine and Megan's lives. It was so normal to us that trying to describe his daily intake of beer as abnormal actually feels more abnormal than accepting what had happened to him. In fact, what happened to him seems like it was supposed to happen all along. But it wasn't. Maybe it only feels that way because we never said anything. We never had any cringy intervention. Yeah, we teased him here and there about his beer belly, but even he joked about it. But we never did anything to decrease his intake of beer. Months before it happened, we were starting to get a little worried as we started noticing little things. He started displaying short-term memory loss, but we just brushed it off. I wish we didn't. We loved him, so why didn't we do anything? A heron flew impressively close to the marshland while I brought us up the highway. I could see Dad in the rearview mirror, in the middle of the back seat, with the slightest whimsicalness of peace in his beady eyes. He seemed geriatric now. The world outside the car windows was too green and sunny and peaceful for all of this to be happening. But it had already happened. We got home. Megan and Mom walked inside. Our house was one of those creamsicle orange-colored houses with a Cuban-style roof. I was still sitting in the car while watching them hold his hands. His legs had become very short. In fact, his lower body was now more foot than leg. They helped him in, and I got out and went to the garage, took his cooler and dragged it into the car, threw it in, and drove away. I drove to a fishing pier, not caring about the nasty looks I was getting while I dumped the ice and Bud Light cans into the swampy water. I looked over the wooden railing and watched them bob on the green water, at first like mini barrels of radioactive waste. But then they started sinking, just like my father. I watched their blue and silver decor become obscured by dark water. Ice cubes were floating in a ring around where the Bud Light cans sank. Part of me wished Dad sunk with them, but he didn't. He was at home with Mom and Megan, probably back in his recliner, while Mom called his boss. He was in his recliner with Fox News on when I got home. Megan had her arms folded in the kitchen, standing behind the granite island, looking into the living room. Because of all that height he lost, only his arms were visible. All we saw was the back of the recliner. A physical therapist came over, and Megan and I watched the physical therapist give Dad a set of toys, a cube, a pyramid, and a sphere. Set up between them was one of those plastic trays with openings for a square, circle, and triangle to fit through. Mom was sniffling in the other room while we watched Dad try and jam the cube into the opening for the circle. I just couldn't watch it, so I went into the room where Mom was crying. She was on her bed, looking over an open binder of photographs. "Your father was so handsome, Brendan." I sat beside her, never minding the bunches of tissues on the floor. She was looking down at a picture of Dad holding me up, his big hands underneath my armpits. I only had 2 teeth in my smile in the picture, but I was smiling all right. And so was he, holding up his little boy. My bare feet and stubby legs were similar to what his looked like now. Father and son. 2 torches believed to be one that had to be passed down and down. She flipped the page to a photograph of Dad at the table with Megan and I, both still toddlers. He seemed to be involved in a very serious conversation with us, but it was the kind of serious that adults feign with children. Megan was evidently telling him something very interesting, with me sat in between them with an indifference and dumbness not too dissimilar to his new countenance. "How could this happen, Mom?" I heard myself ask. She shrugged. "Prolonged alcohol use." "But how?" "The doctor said it affected his cognitive function significantly," she explained, sounding a bit too lost in the no-man land of acceptance. "But enough to change, to turn him into that?" I whispered. "I've researched it, honey. A bit too late, but I was curious. Some people develop cirrhosis, some people develop jaundice and turn all yellow. Some people develop alcohol-induced dementia. God's sakes, those poor people. And I guess some people go through incredible changes." "Incredible changes," I repeated while looking at a picture of Dad, Megan, and I at the table. "Maybe he's still in there," Mom suggested, turning the page. So we tested her theory. We dug up the old home videotapes. Mom and Dad's wedding, history on the TV. He looked like a movie star in his black suit, and Mom looked as happy as somebody who was marrying a star. "Hey, Roderick, how many years you planning on being married?" the cameraman asked, to which Dad said cheerfully, "A long time, Connor. Many years." He turned and looked at his new wife. "A long, long time. Many years, right, baby?" Dad was in his recliner, staring at the TV. The 3 of us kept looking from the TV to him, and back at the TV again, which now showed Mom and Dad dancing together in grainy home camera video. Terrific in pre-9/11 America. Pre-Orangutan Dad. "Do you remember that day, dear?" Mom asked, curling her fingers around his purple wrist. He didn't react. He was watching the TV like he was watching a number on Dancing with the Stars, not his own wedding video. Did he recognize himself? Something tells me deep down that he did. "I don't think he remembers, Mom," Megan said. He has to, Mom cried. "I know he does." We all froze when Dad took the remote, only for him to start pressing the number 4-1. 4-1, 4-1, over and over again. "What's he doing, Brendan?" Mom asked, which I answered. 41. That's the station for Fox News. Mom started crying while Dad just kept trying to put Fox on, apparently unimpressed with his wedding video. "Maybe you'll start remembering things slowly," Megan suggested, but Mom and I knew the truth. We just went different ways about handling it. I kept my mouth shut, but Mom was shaking her head with his face contorted into a cringing pout. Still, Dad was trying to get it on Fox. We got into a routine after that. Or as much routine as we could get into. Megan had university, Mom somehow managed to get back to work, and I continued stocking shelves at my job. Dad stayed home all day, watching Fox News. But routine can only do so much, so I decided to take Dad for a drive. We went down one of the many highways, which went over the marshland down concrete bridges, herons flying high above, far away like runaway lawn decorations. He sat in the passenger seat, looking morbidly content, a naked orangutan. It was a long drive only because I wanted to break from listening to my mom crying. When we got home that night, Mom tried getting Dad to try on a yellow Hawaiian shirt she had gotten him. He put it on, and it even fit him. But it didn't change anything. He waddled right back into his recliner and put Fox News on. Then I remember the day the state trooper and animal control officer showed up at the front door. We begged and explained, but they told us that we were going to have to do something about this. "That's my dad," I snapped at them when Mom started to cry. "Look, there are plenty of animal sanctuaries upstate," the animal control officer said, handing us a brochure. "Just keep an open mind and try to make a decision before we have to come back here." Well, there's not much else to say, and I don't really want to say anything more. I walked Megan down the aisle the other day, and Dad lives in a zoo now. He eats tons of fruit every day, and he has lots of straw to lounge in, but he's just not as easily amused as the other orangutans. I'm the only one that goes to visit him. I stand among the crowds of children and look through the thick glass. He looks back at me, and I think he does recognize me. He's aware that I was important to him, and I think he does see the desolation in my eyes. I've been so disappointed and let down for so long that I think all my grief has become indifference. But I still feel some loyalty to him, the man who used to toss Megan and I into the pool. I remember how our giggles rode in the air behind us on our trajectory into the pool, on hot summer afternoons before Mom even got a chance to put sunblock on us. I think just maybe somewhere in that orangutan behind the thick glass, there is that memory too. It's just that there's not much thought left in his eyes now. Just indifference. Total, primal indifference because the toxins are gone, and he left behind an orangutan that used to be my dad.